Welcome back, nigga, and it's like that. Fuck you talking about? Welcome back. I'm Pointy Cash Money, nigga, your host with the most, and we finna get into another episode of Survival Time. We finna react to apparently the Doughboy character from Boyz in the Hood was actually based on a real person, so we finna see what's up with that shit.
Welcome back to another episode of Warren Cali. In this episode, I will detail the real story of Boyz in the Hood character, Doughboy. 1 out of every 21 black American males will be murdered in their lifetime. Most will die at the hands of another black male. These facts are flashed on the screen at the start of the Boyz in the Hood movie. The movie Boyz in the Hood was one of the first visual looks describing the aspect of the hood and a coming-of-age story based upon multiple young boys growing up in the inner city of South Central Los Angeles. John Singleton initially developed the film as a requirement for his application to film school in 1986 at USC. John had to come up with multiple ideas for films, and one of them was called Summer of 1984, which describes several incidents in John's life.
You're in the film program? I got in the film program, and I was one of like 14 African Americans in a program that had like 2,000 students, and since my success, they've admitted more than that. But I mean, when I was there, dudes used to look at me and be like, oh well, you should just give it up, because you're black and you'll never make it, and they, we're gonna make movies and you're gonna make movies, and it's just like after a while, I was like, I was trying to be cool with people, but I was like, you know what, kill this, So I just stepped to everybody after that, and I was like, listen, I'm gonna make movies. You are not gonna make movies. You have nothing to talk about. I have life. I have a life. What are you gonna talk about? You're gonna talk about growing up in Encino?
John later sold the script to Columbia Pictures upon his film school graduation in 1990. During writing, he drew in.
I like that he said that, because at the end of the day, like, as an artist, you can draw from wherever. You can draw from any point in your life. You can draw from any point that you can draw some shit that you see on TV, and you can just blank some shit out and just create your own world with it. Like, don't ever let nobody tell you what the fuck you can and can't do, whether you black or white. I don't want to say that fucking much for anybody watching this shit. Shouts out to John Singleton, even though I don't really fuck with John Singleton. But yeah, shouts out to him for that.
From his own life and from the lives of people he knew. He also insisted that he direct the project because he felt like he was the only one who could capture South Central in the right way. The film began production in 1990. With Columbia Pictures behind it, Boyz in the Hood emerged as the first all-black movie about the urban life of LA to be backed by a major studio. More important, it was one of the first times a young African-American filmmaker has dealt with issues describing his generation, from family issues, gang turf wars, and also crack addiction. The film Boyz in the Hood will go on to star veteran actors like Lawrence Fishburne and Angela Bassett, but many up-and-coming young actors like Morris Chestnut, Cuba Gooding Jr., Nia Long, and also rapper Ice Cube will be in the movie. Ice Cube will go on to play the character Doughboy.
John Singleton, he's a 22-year-old brother. This is his first movie. He just graduated out of USC. Does a movie about South Central Los Angeles. He's from South Central Los Angeles. So the story is very sincere, and it hits home. That's why I did it, and he worked with me a lot. So
I'm so glad. I want to thank God that Ice Cube can now articulate him fucking self, because god damn, what the fuck, like, it really took all ahead of that for him to say that one little bit in peace. God damn, it took that nigga 2 hours to say that shit, bro. It really didn't take him that long. It shouldn't have taken him that long to say how old that nigga was and how he shot the movie and what the fuck his character name was. God damn.
I haven't seen the final edit of the whole movie, but I've seen dailies, clips of, I think it's pretty good.
What's the character that you play?
Character named Doughboy. He's a guy. He comes from a family with just his mother and his brother, and it's about a guy who went the wrong way. His brothers play sports, and he's like been an adolescent. He's been a juvenile delinquent, and it's all about his life now compared to his brother's life. It's not a documentary, but it's so close to one. The Temptations in a place like Compton is much more than the Temptations in Iowa for a kid. It's this close from a documentary.
Boyz in the Hood will go on to leave a major cultural impact in the urban community, being one of the first films describing the inner city life, and it will be a big box office success, grossing $57 million and only with a budget of $5 million, and even getting John Singleton numerous nominations and awards.
It's a new movie that really cuts to the heart of an American crisis. Boyz in the Hood. It is an important movie. This movie was written and directed by a young black man who is only 23 years old.
I did the film actually to show how the difference between what a responsible, open-minded black man would do in raising his son, and so I could contrast that to the way, his son's two friends would be raised just by their mother. And what we show in this film, that there's a mother in the film who raises raises her two sons, and one she overly loves, and he becomes irresponsible and a teenage father. Another one she doesn't love enough, and he becomes a gangster. And that's Doughboy, that's Cube's character.
Is the story that you told in Boys in the Hood your own story?
Well, the story of Boys in the Hood is just a catalyst for me.
First of all, I don't think she should have asked him that like that, for one. Two, I really don't fuck with Oprah. I'm really surprised that she even gave them niggas an interview, because how anti-hip-hop she is and how much of a hip-hop movie this shit is. So I'm really confused as to why she even interviewed them. That bitch know damn well that's a terrible ass question to ask that nigga. You don't know what he coming from and what his life is. I feel like that's an insult as a black woman at that time. Like, she should have gave him an opportunity to just ask him, what did he draw from for the movie, instead of saying some shit like that.
And I went to live with my father.
But what many people don't know is the movie Boys in the Hood is the actual life of John Singleton. Most characters in the movie are true characters in real life. John and even the character Trey are the same person. And Trey's father and mother in the movie are based upon John's actual parents. Growing up, John initially lived with his mother, where she lived in Inglewood, in the Inglewood family Gangsta Blood's territory. At just 11 years old, John went to live with his father. And most things in the film are true. Like the guy breaking into their home and his father shooting at the guy, and also the black policeman even saying, "You should have got him," among several other things in the film. And also the character of Doughboy was the actual best friend of John Singleton. The real Doughboy's name was Michael Winters, and he went by the name Fatback. Once John moved with his father at the age of 11 years old in 1979, he moved on to 101st in Vermont, which was...
I really didn't know this. I knew he lived in South Central, and I knew he was from there, and I knew all of that shit, but I didn't know he was this deep in that shit. I didn't understand that part of the game. That's crazy.
107 Hoover Crips territory. This was the same area that Fatback and several other kids who became John's friends lived on and became from. John and Fatback became friends in the 6th grade. They went through everything together, from fights, learning how to skateboard, riding the bus, and starting to take interest in girls, and just overall surviving South Central. John would say that Fatback was a talkative kid growing up. He always spoke his mind and never gave a fuck. Like the character Doughboy. At the age of 12, Michael gave himself the name Fatback, and he was already repping 107 Hoover. The 107 Hoovers were founded in the 70s as one of the gangs in the Hoover Alliance, which currently includes gangs like the 5 Deuce, 5-9, 7-4, 8-Trey, 9 Deuce, 9-4, and 11 Deuce Hoovers. The Hoovers are one of the most hated and deadly gangs of Los Angeles, so growing up in this area is definitely tough. John stated in an interview he grew up in his early teens around mainly 3 friends, one being Jimmy, another friend named Michael, and Fatback. As they got older, John's friends got deeper into the streets, just like the movie reflected, but he locked into school and his studies. The summer of 1984, with all of them being 16, is what marked the overall change of everyone. The streets of Los Angeles were full of blood and Crip gangs, gang violence, racism, and drugs. Fatback by this time was a full active gang member for the 107 Hoovers, smoking weed, drinking, selling drugs, getting into fight, and all type of violence and situations in his community, and others was the norm. Fatback would later state in a 1991 interview, "It's a part of growing up around here. Hanging around with the in crowd on gangs turf, violence comes with the territory." As the years grew, John locked into school and later went to college and also started a film career, and Fatback locked into the streets. Fatback considered moving out the hood, but he felt anchored there. He said in a 1991 interview, "It's my block, it's my street, and my name's written out there in the cement. The gangs are still here, but when you get older, you get out of that stuff. You start thinking about ways to make money and doing something else with your life." Even though both John and Fatback took different paths in life, they remain close friends. You can often see both men together all the time. John even had...
I really want to know then, why did he kill him off the damn thing and not just tell like the whole story if that was the case, or really just tell like some real shit. I mean, I guess maybe he was just trying to show that downside to the streets and reality more so than play with it, I guess, so niggas wouldn't take the ending wrong. But shit, this just show you how close reality is to what we be creating in art. Like, it's really all a reflection of what we be doing and seeing.
Fatback got several movie premieres and also several events he held.
Y'all might not know me, but probably know my character. Ice Cube portrayed my role, my character.
This is Judy and Pedro. They just bought their first home and are learning a lot. Thanks to Google.
The original Doughboy. Now I'm gonna tell you, I'm a childhood friend of John Singleton. I mean, I couldn't even ride a skateboard. I used to put my knees on the skateboard and push it. We couldn't even cross the street. John couldn't cross the street. My god brother Kevin Orange, he the one who introduced us. He was like, "Michael, you wanna play with him? That's Danny's son." He walked me and my skateboard across the street and held my hand. And we played together, and we became best friends. I mean, it's been an adventure ever since then. I mean, growing up with John, growing up in the hood is an adventure. So I'm gonna tell you now, Boys in the Hood It's real. It's real.
In 2017, Fatback would even take part in John Singleton's documentary, LA's Burning. But Fatback would unfortunately die to cancer in 2018, leaving a major impact in his community and his life being one of the most memorable characters in movie history. John Singleton would even go on to make a show called Snowfall, and even made a character in the show named Fatback, perhaps in the honor of the original Fatback. And the character in the show was known for being honorable, respected, and loyal, with the original Fatback being said to have the same qualities. Unfortunately, a year after Fatback's death in 2018, John Singleton died from a stroke in 2019.
Actor John Singleton has died. He was the first black filmmaker ever nominated for a Best Director Oscar for his groundbreaking 1991 classic Boyz in the Hood. He is also
I want to say this real quick. I know people probably gonna get offended, but I don't really give no fuck. I low-key think John Singleton gay, and seeing how that nigga was like talking and shit, that shit look weird as fuck. They could've, I don't know, that's some weird ass shit. This is weird as fuck. And then the issue with me for John Singleton is John Singleton never had no children or none of that. And he do got a lot of rumors on him, but as far as being gay and stuff like that, even with the Tupac situation, that's why I never fucked with him, because he tried to make it seem like Tupac got reached in jail for his movie. But yeah, I lost a lot of respect for John Singleton. But the more I paid attention to John Singleton, if you ever noticed, after Boyz in the Hood, he did a lot of new male scenes and shit like that. There used to be a lot of like weird shit going on in a lot of John Singleton movies that it was questionable.
the youngest director ever nominated. Singleton went on to explore themes of race and class in films like Poetic Justice, Shaft, and Baby Boy. He was recently acclaimed for his work on American Crime Story, The People vs. O.J. Simpson. John Singleton suffered a stroke last week. He never recovered.
John Singleton's childhood contributed to a major genre of movies and inspiration to many, and his childhood friends' circumstances show how the outcomes in the inner city can lead kids down the wrong path. Both men from the same area had two different paths in life. Both made it up.
I'm gonna stop it. We're gonna finish it right here, but I'm gonna say this. In Snowfall, John Singleton had that scene where dude got raped and stuff like that. Like, that was weird and that was crazy. Come to find out all that shit is actually true out there. Another thing is, like, it was just a lot of stuff that he was saying he was drawn from his own personal experiences. So I'm curious to know, like, how much of that shit is actually a personal thing versus not. And I'm curious to know, like, with the Hoover situation, we know what we know now about, like, the Hoovers and, like, certain Hoovers doing certain things to kids and stuff like that. It makes me curious to know, like, you know, like, what the fuck is really going on out there. But it's funny to see how close to reality that damn movie was, because we didn't even know that for real. I never knew that this nigga was a real person. So shouts out to him, RIP to both of them shit, because they both gone. But this whole video was kind of questionable to me. And I'm really just reacting to this shit, but that shit is hilarious. Okay, but I ain't never seen no gangsters really talk like that. I don't know, y'all might know better than me, you know what I'm saying? I'm chilling, but that shit didn't look right. But shit, y'all let me know what y'all think. I'm gonna leave the link in the description. Peace, we out.
Hey, you gotta know your purpose, understand what worth is. They snakes is lurking, observing, trying to close your curtains. These hoes be perping.